welcome to Feelings and Other F Words. I'm Dr. Daryl Appleton, former psychotherapist, if one can ever shed that. I'm not really sure. I think it's just like being a mother. It's always with you. But current executive coach and advisor, and somebody who is turning a decade older tomorrow. Now, I promise you, this is not a birthday episode. You will not hear the words, 40 things I learned turning 40. No, this is an episode with the F word 40 about the research and psychology around midlife. And we're going to be diving into the midlife crisis and why it's completely changed from when the research typically came out. And I think it is fascinating. Again, the nerd in me. The other part of this is I don't necessarily celebrate my birthday. And you might be like, oh, poor thing. That's shocking. She's a Leo. Like, what's happening here? I celebrate myself every day. So this is not me. This is not a bold statement. This is not a noble statement. This is not like a denial statement. The number, the day, it doesn't necessarily register with me like it does with some people. And that's not to say that you can't do that. I think you should celebrate your birthday if that's what you feel inclined to. For me, it feels like more work. It feels like more decisions for a Friday that I need to make versus just continuing to do the things that I want to do at least a little bit every single day and celebrating myself that way. So again, this is where I stand on birthdays, but I want to make sure that we talk a little bit more about what happens when you turn a certain age and psychologically what we have been taught about this and why it may not be the thing that it used to be. So if you're 32 and you're dreading this number, I want you to really listen to what the data has to say because you might be surprised. And if you're 51 and you were handed this script that you should be in crisis, then the data probably owes you an apology. Let's dive into it. Let's dive into the nerdy stuff. So the term midlife crisis, every one of us, I am sure, has heard that term, which means that there's a lot of research around this concept. And it started by a man named Elliot Jacques in 1965. That's where this has all started. And the paper he wrote was called Death and the Midlife Crisis. So really, really uplifting things. And he did a study with around 300 creatives, which is, an interesting sample size, if you will. There's not a ton to make certain statements, but enough. And his evidence was, again, primarily with artists, and he observed a shift in output and tone around mid-30s. And from that very narrow sample, one of the most durable ideas in popular psychology was truly born. Again, we have all heard about this, but how many of us have actually learned about it? That's the thing. So in the late 19th century, which I struggle to say because that's ridiculous, but really early 2000s, around, I think it was 2008, David Blanchflower. I cannot tell you how many times I say this man's name and I can never get it right. So I apologize, David Blanchflower and Andrew Oswald at University of Dartmouth and Warwick. They actually published evidence of a U-shaped curve that happens in well-beings across the lifespan. And what that means is they studied that when you are young, you are more happy. When you are in the middle of your life, you are unhappy. And then you're happy again at the end, which I think is what we have all taken as just fact on some level, or we have all heard of this. This is where it gets really interesting. This finding was replicated hundreds of times. Blanchflower eventually reported that this U shape, again, happy, unhappy, happy again, in 145 countries, across every state in the US, across cohorts born in the 40s and the 80s. Like, this was something that was almost undeniable. He even found it in apes, which led to this speculation that this pattern, this U-shaped pattern, is something that's deep within our primate nature. There is about 600 papers of literature, of studies on this. This is, to just show you the significance, this is as close to as settled as social science gets, which is incredibly hard. Now, again, you're like, okay, Daryl, you said it was about to get interesting. That's not that interesting. Here's where it is. In 2025, not that long ago, people should be talking about this more. Blanchflower and Alex Bryson at University College London published work declaring that the U shape had disappeared. They found that the thing they've been studying since early 2000s went away. It was not that it was wrong in 2008, but that it had changed. Pause. That is a wild statement, right? That is kind of shocking that it was so prevalent, but something changed. But not that much when you think about how much society has changed since 2008 and access to technology and all this other stuff. But really, beginning around 2012 to 2013, the pattern of the U shape began to dissolve. And they looked at data covering 2 million people across 44 countries. And they found the same thing, but just in a different direction. They found now, instead of a U shape, they found that unhappiness now peaks around 18 to 24. I'm going to say that again. Unhappiness is now peaking in our younger population of 18 to 24-year-olds, and that you subsequently get more happy as age increases. So now you're kind of having this line graph where the line is trending upwards, which I find amazing. What I don't find amazing is that the sharpest deterioration is among young women. They're finding that the most unhappy people are young women 18 to 24, and we need to protect them at all costs. Now, Blanchflower was alarmed, as am I, that what is happening with our young people and what does that mean as you get older? Will this then also steadily decline if you can't get yourself out of it, right? That's my kind of question. Like, what is going on? And he really made the call or the announcement, so to speak, that researchers need to stop studying midlife crises and need to start studying the adolescent mind and focusing on that field a bit more. So again, when we think about this, it changes a whole bunch of ideas in my head about what age means, how to celebrate yourself or not, or the life experiences around a thing. And this is something that Laura Cartison's selective theory that she developed at Stanford really kind of talks about. And her argument is that life is not chronological age, or what reorganizes, I should say, what reorganizes a life is not chronological age. Like at some point at 40, I'll have it all figured out, or at 23, I should be doing this. But instead, it's a perceived time horizon. And let's dig into that. So she found that when the horizon of your time feels open, that people tend to optimize for information. They optimize for novelty and expansion and meeting new people and acquiring more skills. They keep options alive, right? Which makes sense. When the horizon feels bounded, you have 6 months left, right? Or this is how much time is left on your board, whether mentally I'm thinking that way of like, oh yeah, well by 80, that's when it really kind of goes to shit, or whatever, a medical professional telling you your time is bounded. People optimize for different things. They optimize for emotional meaning, and they prune hard towards relationships that actually deliver. So they are more selective about who they spend their time with. And here's the critical part for this episode. And it's not about birthdays. It's about the effects of perceived time. So if you shorten a 22-year-old sense of horizon, they tend to prioritize like a 70 or 80-year-old. Age is really a proxy. The variable is the horizon or the perceived horizon. There's another study that comes out of MIDUS, the Midlife in the United States study, which has really been running since the 1990s. And it actually remains the deepest data set that we have on this period of life. And there's two finding matters here that I think are important to know. Sense of purpose tends to decline with age at the group level. But research published then later from the 1990s, when this initially came out in 2021 using MIDUS cohorts, found that positive change in purpose predicted better late physical health and a person's purpose level. I butchered all of that, but it's a simple way of saying that people who find purpose feel better, are better, prioritize better, and it's beyond their purpose level, meaning what they think they should be doing at that time. And this really is all about attitude, I would say. The long-running work, the MIDUS, or maybe it's mid-US, worked on sense of control studies with the same kind of story, right? Perceived control, not age, does the most of the predictive work on how midlife actually goes. Simple way of saying your perception becomes your reality. My words, not theirs, but that's really what it is. So the question, right, that the science begs in my mind is, if the number isn't the thing, if the number's not the variable, what is the deadline you have actually been running against, and who said it? Who told you at 24 you needed to have it all figured out? And is that deadline making you less happy? And if so, why do you need to have it all figured out at 24? Why do you need to be married at 33? Right? Nowadays, why do you need to have a baby before 40? Right? Yes, science says that it's healthier for the mother and the child maybe, but there's so many other ways to do it now. So again, I'm not suggesting that one way is better than the other. Hear me, because I know somebody's going to write in and be like, how dare you talk about this? I am not suggesting one way is better than the other. What I am suggesting is the timeline you are putting on your things in your own head is potentially making you feel more unhappy, because a lot of these timelines don't exist other than in your own mind and are unchecked for facts. That's just pure feeling. Like, so, okay, what does this look like, Daryl? What does this look like in the wild? This is really the 38-year-old who is in the leadership program, doing a kitchen renovation, booking the fertility consult because she's quote unquote behind in having kids in the same 6-week span, and feels like, okay, finally, I'm getting my life together now. This is what I should be doing. It's the client, if you listen to last episode, of I should be partner by now or getting partner. And when I ask them directly of like, where should you be by now? Where did this come from? It's not from a plan. It's not from a mentor. It's not from the universe. It just is something that they feel like they should have done by now. This could be the 44-year-old man in the parking lot with a midlife crisis car everyone at the office has a joke about. But really, it's not necessarily true. Maybe he just likes that car. So we see this over and over and over again. And the way that you describe the next milestone, the next decade, the next birthday in your own head, without ever noticing if you're quoting somebody, that's the thing I want us to pay attention to. Because I think that we do a bad job of challenging those thoughts that feel pre-installed. And the wellness internet does not help. You know how I feel about the wellness internet. That's why this whole thing started, really. The wellness internet is going to tell you like 40 is the new 30, which is a compliment, but it's weirdly shaped like a demotion in my mind. It almost concedes the entire premise that 30 was the better thing to be. I don't know. When people are like, 40 is the new 30, I'm like, why is 30 the better thing to be? And why is it being mistaken as the best possible outcome for being 40? Again, this is why, like, numbers, I'm a terrible person to sit with and celebrate a milestone, apparently, because I'm going to be like, why does that matter to you? This should be an amazing thing. That's actually not true. I can tuck all of this in if we're sitting down and having a nice, lovely past app together. I can tuck it in and I can celebrate you. But in my head, I'm like, okay, yeah, but who said that this was the thing, right? Who said it? The research says something harder and more freeing, right? There's no crisis on the schedule. And really, there never was. What there is, and what has been misread, in my opinion, as a crisis for the last 60 years, is this idea or this collision between life and a timetable that you yourself did not write. It's truly distress that was never produced by age. It was produced by a gap between where you are and a schedule you never consciously agreed to. That's where I find people feeling some type of way about their age or about the next thing ahead. It is that gap. It's that I should be, or I wish I would have by now narrative. And really, like, the schedule didn't disappear. We see it in this research. That internal schedule, I guess, is what I'm talking about. It's just getting handed to the younger people earlier. And there's more metrics around it because of Instagram and social media and what everybody else is doing. Again, this stuff's not new. I'm sure you're all like shaking your heads being like, oh yeah, no, I've heard these studies. Like, unhappiness is following them because of the deadline that they have set and not the birthday. And that's why I think the U-shaped curve of happy, unhappy, happy again has shifted to unhappy at 18, 24, because I should be doing this now. And hopefully with age, you realize that that's all bullshit. What should you be doing other than paying your library fees and taxes or whatever it goes? But that's the thing. The number's not doing anything to you. The deadline that you've attached to it is. So, last part of this episode, what do we do about it, Daryl? You know I like this. Actionable steps that you can do in 15 minutes or less. What the F to do about it? Here's one of the things that I want you to do immediately. I want you to do a deadline inventory. I want you to do it today. I want you to write down every age-linked sentence that you are personally carrying. By 30, I should have. By 40, I will have. It's too late to do X, Y, and Z. Write them down exactly as they appear in your head, in your own phrasing. No one else is going to read it. I want you to be raw with it. Then next to each one, I want you to try to write and figure out who said that first. Where did you learn that? Most people truly cannot answer most of that on the list. And the ones they can answer, I have found, come from a parent, a boss, a magazine, looking at a friend and deciding that's what I should or shouldn't do. Those ones that are unattributed or not consciously linked to something are running your life. And the ones that are attributed too, but like, you need to choose which narrative you decide to keep or not. The next thing I want you to do, sometime this month, not today, I want you to repurpose the way you think about purpose, which may seem like it makes sense. But here's what I want to do. This is not like, what's my purpose question? Because like, that is unanswerable in my opinion. And a lot of times it makes people feel worse. Like, I feel worse when I try to think about what my purpose in this world is, because I'm like, what? I don't even know. And I'm clearly not doing it if I don't know. The MIDUS finding is about change. So the question really is the purpose I am currently running the one I set at 24? And have I ever consciously renewed it? I talk a lot about definitions of success and updating your definition of success. This is really what I'm talking about in a different way of saying it. People have revised their career, where they live, their marriage, their body, but they've never once dug into the fundamentals of the shoulds, the musts. And that to me is wildly important because it's the variable that links to predicted health and outcomes of health and happiness in the future. So if you're continually running that pre-downloaded software, that old system software, like, you're always going to get that same outcome. The third thing I want you to do is I want you to figure out your time horizon. If your time horizon were 12 months, who would be on your list to hang out with? Write down the names. Pull like your actual calendar from the last month and compare who you actually spent time with. That's the gap, right, between the two lists. And it's one of the most honest things and the most gut punch exercises I've had people do. It's this idea of, who are you keeping in your circle? What are you choosing to do with your time? So it's kind of macabre, but deathbed scenario. If you had 12 months to live, what would you be doing with whom? And why aren't you doing it now? And some things is like, I would spend all my money in travel, right? Like, don't do that because you probably are going to live longer. But on the other side, if you wanted to call your grandma more, why aren't you? Right? If you have time to scroll, you have time to make a phone call. I've seen that ad and I love it. I forget who does it, but I love it. Last one, and we're wrapping up after this. I want you to figure out, this is long arc. I want you to look at the women, the men, the people in your family that were at this number and looking through the world through the lens of them potentially at this time. Meaning, I want you to figure out what was aging like in your house, what was said about it, right? Was really what I'm trying to say. At what volume? Like, what did they say about what happens to your body? Like, oh God, getting old is wonderful. Or like, don't get old. This is terrible. This is awful, right? We're all running some sort of inherited script about aging. And we absorb this before we're really old enough to truly evaluate it. And a lot of times we don't choose it. But understanding what the script is and what you were downloaded with, again, on a deeper level from a familial standpoint, is going to help you be able to be in charge of rewriting it for the next 20 years to come, and potentially for your children as well. So I want to end with this. The number, the age you are at, the midlife crisis, so to speak, that's not the problem, the decade you're turning. The deadline that you've attached to this number, and the shoulds, the musts, the I have not, the failures, because I haven't done X, Y, and Z at this age, that's the problem. And the scripts you are not challenging are the then beliefs that you decide to live in and live out. And that's where I want you to take this next step into your decade, whether it's 20, 30, 40, 70, 80, whatever, with you, because we can do that at any age, and we can pump up that life happiness index as well as future outcomes of our own health and well-being. That's what I want for everybody for my birthday, for my 40s. That's the gift that I want to get, is all of you guys doing that inner work, having that self-awareness, and getting a bit deeper into being the author of your own story. So again, I appreciate you, as always, for tuning in. Stay tuned, as I'm on the cusp of developing some cool quizzes and takeaways on these episodes. You can also look at Substack and Appleton a Day. I usually do a recap of these, so you can check it out there, or my Instagram at Dr. Daryl Appleton, or drdarylappleton.com, all the things. I was told by my producers I need to do a better job of telling people where they can find me and interact with me. So there you go. You're welcome, Vin. But until next time, I will see you at the next Feelings and Other F Words. Bye.